Good afternoon and a happy Sabbath, everybody. We trust that you are enjoying your day and that you are enjoying your Sabbath and that you have taken the time to spend with family and friends and or maybe it's lockdown. I forget. Maybe family and that you've enjoyed the messages that have been happening today. I particularly enjoyed both Dr. Mngobisa and Pastor Lefume's message earlier on. I really enjoy. And speaking about that, by the way, let me share the because of the glitches that we had when we were sharing the isiXhosa message by Dr. Mngobisa. The idea is to have it this evening for Vespers again. The DSTV service is to have it on this platform and our YouTube platform, and this will hopefully follow after this presentation. With me, I have this afternoon good friends of mine, Andre and Trust. And well, Andre and I, we've been communicating, but we first met each other in Zimbabwe.
That's right. About a year ago, was it?
A year ago, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And that was the same with you, Trust, as well. I met you there. No. Yes, you were there, right?
Where was that?
In Harare last year. But I only met. Actually, I was referred to you earlier on this year by Tembi Moyo from the FIB when we were planning the Cape Conference. Yes. I don't think we've met.
No,
I don't think we've met.
Yeah,
not really. We only speak electronically. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And
thank you, guys. I'm sure you've heard of Trust.
I've
seen his work.
I've heard of Trust. I've seen his work as well. I've heard of Trust after he's doing incredible work. And let me just introduce you guys and to our viewers and our Cape Conference friends that are joining us. We already have people that are joining, and already. Our first speaker is going to be Trust Sayi. Tovim Banashe is his name. I think it's Shona.
It's Shona, yes.
Yes, yeah, it should be Shona. He's a filmmaker and a creative photographer, and is currently a media director for East Zimbabwe Conference Media. He has previously served as assistant instructor for the visual communication program at the Adventist University of the Philippines in IS, where he was teaching areas such as photojournalism, graphic design. It's different, eh? University of the Philippines. Yeah, not IS, yes.
Yeah, AUP.
Yeah, AVP, yes. And where you were teaching, he was actually teaching areas such as photojournalism, graphic design, photography, and creative advertising. At the same time, he was a media consultant for the Adventist International Institute of Advanced Studies, and that is IS. He has also served as assistant communication specialist for ADRA at the Philippines. Recently, he published his new book, and that is why he's here, after I came across the book titled Digital Evangelism, which focuses on the effective use of digital media and evangelism. As a filmmaker, one of his dreams is to build state-of-the-art film production studios in the African continent that will take up a leading role in using digital media platforms to prepare the world for Christ's second coming. When not too busy, he enjoys lots of travel and outdoor photography. He's the first son out of 5 children born to pastor and the late Mrs. Sayi from Zimbabwe. And I hope that people now get to know the kind of caliber that I have here. And thank you, Trust, once again for availing yourself, my friend. I really appreciate that. And our second guest for this afternoon is Andre Brink. And I think he's perhaps more known in our shows because he's South African. And his grandfather was a photographer and a filmmaker. So this seems to be running in the family. And and his other grandfather was an evangelist, and that makes sense then. So what Andre has done has brought these influences together: photography, media, filmmaking, and the Adventist message. For 13 years, he ran his own production company, producing corporate videos, documentaries, and later award-winning interactive media. In 2004, Andre and his wife approached our church, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and together they started a studio in Cape Town. A few months later, they helped to launch the Hope Channel in Africa and produced hundreds of local contextualized programs. We'll talk about how and why that is important later on, Andre. On the campus of Heidelberg College, they built a 1,000 square meter studio facility and launched various training programs. And in 2010, he was elected as Associate Communication Director in charge of media services and moved to the world quarters of our church in Washington, D.C., the U.S. He now coordinates media resources and promotes the use of film, TV, and the internet to spread the message of Jesus' love and his soon return. And thank you guys once again for being here.
Thank you, Sivu, for inviting us.
Sure, thank you too.
All right, and so this is what we're going to be having. We're going to be having Trust Go First. And the reason we're starting with you, Trust, is because we trust you. And so we're going to have Trust. We're going to have you go first, my friend, and then I don't know, but what do you think? Do you think we should take questions after Trust has spoken, or do you go as well, Andre, and then we take the questions collectively together later on?
If the presentation is about 30 minutes, why don't we just handle the questions about that topic, and then I'll do mine and questions, and then there'll still be time for both of us if people want to ask us general questions.
Sure. Awesome. Okay, great. Trust. We trust that you're going to enjoy your time. It's over to you. So what's going to be happening? We will vacate. No. Actually, we got to stay with here with you, Trust, and then let you continue with your presentation. All the best. Over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. All right. Greetings, everyone, wherever you are in different parts of the world, those who are watching. What I'm going to be talking about is ways to enhance ministry in 2020, and as we're going forward, how do we really enhance media ministry and what it really means. I remember about the last meeting I attended in Jordan, Communication Summit. My friend there, Andre, said something that was very striking. He said that I actually am going to quote him. He says, we live in a time where it's never been easier to communicate, and at the same time, it's never been harder to be heard. What I like that statement, and what it meant is that there's a lot of means that we can use to communicate, but at the same time, because of a lot of influx of media which is around us, it can become difficult to be heard. And how do you then stand out for you to be heard? So my presentation is more like 5 different pointers. I summarized it that can help us to have an effective ministry. This is part of what I've written in my book that I recently released. The first one, I'm going to read you a quote from Forbes. This is from Forbes magazine from last year. They say that video marketing has a more effective and lasting impact to reach out to your audience online. And why were they saying that? They've actually discovered that it's much more resourceful to actually use videos if you're going to communicate. And also, when you're producing your videos, and nowadays, number one of my first points is that I think creative visual content. Your content needs to be creative. It also needs to be very visual. And you need to put all those things together. You know, I remember I stayed a lot of years in the Philippines. When I came back home to Africa per se, I discovered that we've got great content in Africa, but our main problem is that we don't really have creative visual content. You know, the videos sometimes are boring. If you watch a video of a sermon, sometimes it's shot with a mobile phone, and you know, sometimes the phone goes on landscape, it goes on portrait, and the cameraman is talking behind. Or like, no, I mean, what is this? We need to be more creative and also use quality in our stuff. So on my first point here is that we must think of very creative visual content. The idea is that when you're producing your videos, keep them short, informative, and be as creative as possible. I have also noticed that our online audiences, they tend to respond and interact more with visual content than any other publication format. That's why now when you go on Facebook, if you make a post on social media which has got videos, it's very, very easy for that post to go very far than just writing something, typing with words. So people are more visual and they understand more of visual content than anything else. So I think that's one of the first points that I want us to take note of, to be very creative when we are coming up with our visual content. This also means that we are to produce high quality content, and also it also, what I would also advise for ministries who are starting up, whether you're a church or you're a conference and you have no idea how to go about it, it's good to seek advice from your experienced personnel who know how to do these things. People who probably have an experience in filmmaking or in media and all that. It helps you to be better. Also, you may need to want to come up with a production team for a small church, which can help you to be better. So point number 2, I said I've got 5 points and then we're done. Point number 1 was that think of very creative visual content. Point number 2 is quit ghosting your audience. I said quit ghosting your audience. What do I mean by that? One of the most common sins of ministries or bloggers or content creators living today is that we only publish content once in a blue moon. I mean that you post a video today on your Facebook page, the next post comes in after 3 months, and you forget about your audience. When you do that, the disadvantage of ghosting your audience is that they will forget about you. And when they forget about your ministry online, it's going to be very hard for you to come back and try and convince them again to follow you online. So avoid ghosting your audience. Also remember that the moment you go online, social media is now a very fast-paced digital landscape. It's very fast. You know, there's news online. We are following your famous celebrities. There's Netflix. There's all those things. So if you don't keep up, your audiences can easily forget about you. So it's very important that you don't ghost your audience online. I want us to take note of that. That's the second point when it comes to being effective or ways of enhancing your ministry online. I'm going to go to point number 3, which is brand your ministry. So we said point number 1, think creative visual content. Number 2, quit ghosting your audience. Number 3, brand your ministry. According to entrepreneur.com, they say that branding is the market practice of creating a name, a symbol, or design that identifies or differentiates a product among other products. So the moment you get into media ministry, the moment you start ministering online, your audience must have a reason why are they following you online. That's very important. So you must brand your ministry. I remember when you started working with EZC Media, we decided to say, let's come up with a platform where we can share content as EZC Media online as a church. And the first question we're asking ourselves was to say, how do we want our audience to know about us? What is EZC Media? So we had to answer that question and brand ourselves. And one of the things we said is that our production must be of good quality. So quality became part of our brand, and to also become creative. So I think it's important when you venture into media ministry, be able to understand that you must have a certain way that you brand yourself once you go online. I hope we are following, and I hope we're getting it. So branding your ministry is that digital ministry is mostly about branding. Whether you're a newcomer or you've been engaged in ministry for years, it's important to build your brand and sustain it. What's your message as a ministry, and how do you relate to your audience, and how do you want your audience to relate to you? What's unique about your ministry, and why should online users subscribe to your channel? So all those questions are what you ask yourself when you are getting into ministry online. That becomes very, very important. So this also, branding means creating a logo for your ministry, building a website, colors, fonts. All these things are elements which can be associated with your brand or your ministry. You know, I've heard a lot of people who come and they'll be asking me, so I'm a small church, maybe we're just starting up. How do we really, I want to create a website for my church. And sometimes I say it's a good thing to have a website for a church, but I don't advise it. Remember, I'm still talking about branding here. It's a very important question that I've been asked by most people. They'll be asking, so we've got a church that we are now starting online, but we want to create a website. So I say, it sounds like a good idea to start by creating a website for a church, but I wouldn't really advise newcomers to start with that. Why? Because your website might not really make sense if you don't really have an audience. Because you can create a website and it ends up becoming a monument on the internet and no one visits it. I've seen websites for churches where people invest a lot of money in building a website for a church. After that, they don't update the website. It becomes almost obsolete. And sometimes it's got content which has been there for maybe 22 or so years without updating it and all that. So those can become a bit of a challenge. What am I saying here? Once you are branding your ministry, I would advise you to start by having active presence on social media, meaning create a Facebook page for your church, create a YouTube channel for it, and have presence in all social media platforms first. Why? Because we've got more people on social media than you may have going to visit your website. So it's very important to know that, to know where your audience is, and you know how to actually reach them. So it's easier to start by actually having more presence on social media. And then you can now migrate into having a website. I hope that is clear. I'm going to go to point number 4. One of things that we need to start doing is using live streaming. I know I've noticed there's a lot of churches now which are live streaming almost every Sabbath, and it's a great thing. I like that. Now, Facebook and many other social media platforms have made it very easy to stream content online. Excuse me. Now, what I want us to take note of is that it's not just about putting your content online or just streaming, live streaming per se. That's not only what you can call digital evangelism. It's not just about live streaming. As much as it is a good thing, you need to go beyond that. You need to connect with your audience every day of the week. Figure out how you can make content which is more interactive. For ourselves, what we do as EZC Media is try to encourage your audience. Sometimes you can post Bible text images which can encourage them during the week or keep them updated. So there's a lot of other things that you can do besides just doing live streaming. And when you're talking about live streaming, it's not just streaming your regular church service. Make sure that your content is creative. If it's a sermon, please, I say this again and again, don't make sermons for 2 hours on the internet. People are very busy and they may not even have enough time to actually watch a video that is as long as 2 hours. So keep your content short, because internet has got people who are very busy and who are very impatient. So take advantage of that as you are working towards establishing your ministry online. It's very important to make sure that your content is not too long. If you make it too long, it's boring to watch. Let's face it. I wouldn't want to sit and listen to a sermon for 2 hours on YouTube. I would rather skip and go and do other things. So that's very important. So as much as you're going to start going live as another way of inventing your ministry, it also means that keep your content very short. Don't keep your content too long. Otherwise, people will not really watch it, which is also maybe the point of my presentation. I'm almost done here, and then I'm going to summarize everything. Point number 5, which is my last point. It's go ye therefore. I love the words of Christ, which he mentioned in Matthew 28, when he says that go and preach to all nations. And if we're to achieve this mission, there's no other way of going to preach to all nations than doing it using social media. If Christ was speaking prophetically, which he was, and telling us to reach to the world, there is no other way you can start doing campaigns and putting up tents in the forest and hoping people are going to come and watch you. The only other way of reaching out to people is using social media. And I think we are at a point in history where we've got an opportunity of doing that, especially now because of the pandemic which came in. And I know that Andre is going to talk more about that as well. How do we enhance these opportunities that have come up? Of course, there was the lockdown which came in, but now it also represents, as a church, a lot of opportunities for us that we can use to minister. So I think that brings us to a lot of opportunities that we can use. One other point that I also want us to mention is one of my favorite quotations. This is from Ellen White. She says that when she was writing to the Review and the Herald, she says that we must take every justifiable means of bringing light before the people. Some of the methods used in this work will be different from the methods used in the work in the past. The idea is that as we continue to converse, as we continue to use ministry and evangelism, the methods of ministry are going to change. And as a church, we must be mindful of that. I want to share something with you. I live in Zimbabwe, and I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, and I love my church. But too often I get disappointed by how we do ministry as a church. So I think that's very important to take note. I noticed something that as Adventists, most of our problems are because we don't really use social media very to its effectiveness. There's a preacher, or there's a church that I usually follow online, which is, I'm not going to mention the name of the church, but it's a Pentecostal church. This guy started doing live streaming way before we started doing it, way before that. They're a Pentecostal church, and they live stream almost every Sunday. And their content, every time they post a video, it gets, well, millions of viewers, and people follow it. What I like about them is that they've got quality video productions. For us as a church, we think that because we are Adventists or because we are Christians, we want to substitute quality for holiness. It doesn't work that way. We need to actually be very mindful when we're creating content online. Meaning, the way you produce your content, make sure that it's of a good quality. I sometimes get tired of watching videos that have got poor quality. They're boring to watch. So keep your content with good quality and as creative as possible. When I'm ending, I want to give you some of the some very interesting facts which I gathered from social media, especially Facebook. One of them is this one here. Now we've got internet users. They say they spend over 70% of their time checking Facebook. And as of last year, or as of early this year, we've got 3.2 billion internet users. So this is a huge number of people that are using the internet. And what are we doing ourselves as a church to reach out to those people? And I want to say that as Adventist Church, we are not there yet in terms of how we use social media, or how we use the internet, or how we use digital evangelism. We are still starting up, and I think we can do more. I think there's a whole lot more that we can do when it comes to social media and using internet for ministry. So those are some of my last points that I wanted to take note of, and I'm just about done. I'm going to read you one of my last quotations here, which I think should help us. It says here, one of the most powerful aspects of digital media lies in its ability to extend the reach of ministry beyond the walls of the physical church. I'm saying here, one of the most important things about social media or digital media is that it can reach beyond the walls of the physical building of your church. What does that mean? It means you've got an ability to reach people where you could have never reached them if you're going to talk to them physically. And also, people online nowadays are critics. So if you're going to make a video, if you're going to make a sermon, whatever you're going to make on the internet, make sure that your quality is great. I can't emphasize this point any better. Quality is important. Not just quality, but very creative when you are creating your content online. Because people on the internet can't just watch anything. They like to watch things that have got great quality and that they can associate themselves with. And that will sum up my presentation. I'm done. I hope I stayed within my time, and I hope you are blessed. And thank you so much for the time that you allowed me to speak. Over to you,
Thanks, man. Thanks, man. I definitely enjoyed that, and that does not seem to be my unique sentiment. A lot of people are enjoying it as well, and I know Andrew was also listening backstage. We were talking, but we were listening to you.
Always
Yeah.
like to listen to Trust.
Yeah, I trust.
He has the
All
most
right,
awesome email. It's SAYIT. Say it.
say it. Yeah.
Sayi.
Oh,
Ah, that's right.
yes, it's say it.
Say it.
Say it, man. Say it. Somebody has just said thank you. Thank you. Look, I'm going to be asking a couple of things later on, and
Okay.
trust as well. And but I think we can allow Andre to commence with his presentation. And in the absence of, because it's more or less comments here, and people appreciating, we don't have questions as yet. But we will discuss, the three of us, questions that we know people are having, and then we'll just talk about that after Andrew's presentation.
Okay.
Andrew, you ready?
Yes, Sivu, I've shared my screen. You got it there?
Yes, I got it there. Yeah, I got it here.
Excellent.
All right. What's going to be happening is what we did with Trust and I. We're going to go backstage, but we're listening just to allow Andre and the presentation to continue. So bye, Trust, for now, and you remain backstage.
All right.
Over to you, Andre.
Thank you, Sivu. So my topic today is the new normal. This word we've suddenly learned, this phrase we've learned this year. And during my work, firstly, I must just say that my work is also my hobby. I just love my work, and part of my work during the past number of years has been to travel. So you can imagine how I feel locked down, not being able to get out there and work. And so that's why I put this presentation together to show you how you can work under lockdown. This is a friend of mine. I was photographing a bird, and he photoshopped something else in there. So the topic that I'm talking about, I'm not speaking mostly to communicators. I'm talking to church members. Basically, what I want to go through in 30 minutes, it's too short to teach you too much. So I just want to inspire you and just give you a few ideas about working in this new situation. So we've heard about digital disruption, and a number of years ago, there were a number of companies that came along and disrupted the way that business was being done. The world's largest taxi company owns no taxis. That's Uber. The largest accommodation provider owns no real estate, not even one hotel. That's Airbnb. The largest phone companies have no telco infrastructure, Skype, and today we may say the company Zoom, which has overnight become $1 billion company. The world's most valuable retailer has no inventory. It's got no stock. That's Alibaba. And the most popular media owner creates no content because all of you are creating the content on Facebook. And the largest movie house owns no cinemas. That is Netflix. The largest software vendors don't write the apps. That's Apple and Google. And what is strange is that some of these disruptors have now been disrupted themselves by the pandemic, especially Uber and Airbnb. Some of the others have grown exponentially as a result. Think of Netflix, which during the first half of this year added 26 million new subscribers as a result of millions of people being locked down at home. So what is the new normal? There are so many new terms that we're hearing. Social distancing, flatten the curve, contact tracing, and community spread. Wash your hands. Oh, we used that term before. Hopefully. And then also the word essential has kind of changed in meaning. So I looked up this phrase, new normal. It's actually an oxymoron, typically used to indicate a life event that is out of the ordinary and has a long-awaited, lasting or permanent impact on someone's day-to-day routine. For instance, a couple has just had their first baby, and they might tell their friends and their family they're adjusting to their new normal. But using the phrase to describe efforts to fight a global pandemic implies a sense of permanence that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. So if you check thesaurus.com for synonyms for new and normal, you come up with strange routine, unused standard, and unfamiliar order. New normal is a term that in business, the companies are using it to define navigating the current pandemic landscape. So how is our church adjusting to the new normal? In much of the world, our church's doors are shut. Many of our pastors and workforce have been retrenched. And that also has an impact on the church. Schools and universities have been closed. I do some contract work for Adventist Review Ministries. Adventist Review is the oldest magazine in the church. It's 169 years old. It's actually older than the church itself. And they have about 30,000 subscribers in mostly North America. Then there's also Adventist World, which is published in about 13 languages. It's a free magazine, and 1 million copies are sent all over the world every month. So during these past few months, there have been several printers that have been shut down. They couldn't print at all. And some of those are even facing bankruptcy at the moment. Distribution channels have just been disturbed. And where people often would pick up the magazines at church, people aren't going to their churches. So how does one now adjust to this new normal? Tens of thousands of colporteurs have been out of work. And the GC session, which attracts up to 75,000 people on the second Sabbath in a big stadium, would have taken place about a month ago. As we all know, it was cancelled and postponed to March next year, when a very small group will get together, mostly delegates. And some people are even questioning whether that will take place at that time. So missionaries, they're also impacted. Some of them may be stuck in the countries where they are working in, others unable to go home. So there's been a big impact on not only our church, but all kinds of churches and other religions in this world that we live in. But there have been some positives as well that have come out of this situation. And I'm going to share some of those with you. So on a Sabbath morning now, my wife and I attend our lesson group, our cell group, and we choose to use Zoom so that we can all chat with each other and first start off with seeing how everybody's doing and pray for each other. And then straight after that, we go into church service, also on Zoom. Then later in the afternoon, my previous church, the church Penny and I attended in the US for almost 7 years and became part of our family, I attend that service just to stay connected there. Throughout the week, there are all kinds of Bible studies and discussions, and then meetings and seminars such as this as well. And what one finds is that some of the members who have since moved overseas are now coming back and attending our services and being with us, even though they have to wake up early or stay up late. So there's just this huge, the availability of new programming and options that people can do. It's given more people voices that were not on a stage before and who spoke behind a pulpit. So these are some of the positives that have taken place. Some people like change, others prefer the status quo, and generally people don't like change. Jesus was a disruptor, and we're going to talk about that a little later. But some of the ways in which the church has been disrupted in the field of media has been through streaming video. So 5 years ago, we started a streaming on-demand channel called ARTV, Adventist Review TV. And there are 9 ways that we do ARTV. It's global, it's on demand. It's made for an audience that we call Adventist Plus. The content is shorter, usually around up to 5 minutes, and it's shareable on social media. It includes the audience's point of view. Most of the productions are outside, more than 80% outside the studio. It's mobile first because that's where 80% of viewers are. And it's on demand. You can watch it when you want to, anytime, anywhere. It's also to provide a platform for other content providers. And we carefully check data and see what types of programming to make and base our decisions on that. It also tries to find what the latest technology is. So if you want to find ARTV, go to artvnow.com, artvnow.com. So I'm sure many of you remember a few years ago when the big decision had to be made about Brexit, and British people had to decide yes or no whether to leave the European Union. So we saw this as a great opportunity, and we didn't know what the outcome would be, if it would be a yes vote or a no vote. So we produced 2 videos ahead of time. One, if it would be a yes vote, what would be the outcome? We all know that in prophecy, Daniel 2, it talks about the feet of clay and that Europe would never really be successful. And so, there would be something to make a video about. So we got a British historian and a German professor who writes a lot also about prophecy, and we got them to comment, and we produced these 2 videos. As soon as the decision was made, about 40 minutes later, we put the video out, the yes video, and it had over 1 million views, simply because it was relevant and it had happened right there. So there are many opportunities out there. You can go check out artvnow.com. There are about 800 different videos from all around the world. Now, another way that you can use media to spread the gospel is through audio podcasts, and anybody can do this. There's free software out there. There are websites you can use. This one particularly is SoundCloud. And, people thought that radio would go out as TV and film and media came in, but audio is more popular than ever. You can listen to it while you do some kinds of work. While you're driving, commuting somewhere, you can listen to podcasts, your favorite authors and speakers. And so this is really an easy way. All you need is a phone, and you can produce a good podcast, and even daily or weekly. Another thing is that digital magazines, I mentioned to you the challenges now with print. Here in South Africa, where we are, most of our top magazines, we just heard, are shutting. They're out of business. And some of them are totally closed. Some are going online and going into apps and going digital. But I think pretty soon we won't have magazines anymore. And so we need to start thinking of different options out there. So currently, Adventist World is putting together an app in Kiswahili for East Europe, Eastern Africa, and the East Africa division. And it's based on WhatsApp. So it's very easy for people to share it, forward it to each other, and read it when they have time on their mobile phones. So if you'd like to find out more, do get in touch with me. I'll put my details at the end, and I can put you in touch with the people that are helping us with that. Also, meetings. How does the church do meetings now? There's so many conferences and workshops that are, people fly to another country to attend a meeting, and this has all changed. Now we meet on Zoom, and we can be effective. We've discovered that, we don't need to always travel to another place. So I was very disappointed in April because I was supposed to go to the National Association of Broadcasters in Las Vegas. It's a big broadcast show, and there are about 130,000 people there for 4 days. You walk your legs off in these huge halls and learn a lot about what's coming, what's the latest technology. That was cancelled just 3 or 4 weeks before the event in April. And directly after that, I was going to stop by in Romania to attend GAIN. That's the Global Adventist Internet Network. It's a yearly meeting where people interested in using the internet for evangelism come together. And that was also cancelled. So very disappointing. But soon after that, they both announced we're doing it online. So I attended the NAB online. And I must say, I've attended physically 7 times. And this time, I actually learned more. I got more information. I was able to sit in on more discussions. And since then, I've also attended many other virtual meetings and conferences that would have cost thousands of dollars, but now are free. Or they say, make a donation. So then you're sitting in a Zoom call, there's about 350 people there, and then they say, oh, we just had a question from the vice president of content of Disney. And now this VP of Netflix is asking a question. You think, wow, where could I have ever sat in a room with all these people listening to their questions and answers and listening to experts around the world? So this is what's happening out there. And our church can also do this more and more. Another thing that's happening that's very exciting is that this online community is growing and people willing to help each other. If they have a technical issue, you ask on these forums, and people just go out there and help each other. And I think we can do that more as a church too. Another interesting aspect is remote collaboration. Just recently, I had to get a voiceover for an animation. I needed a young boy's voice. And under the strict lockdown, which we had in South Africa, which lasted 5 weeks, I was not allowed to go to this person, and which I normally would have done. So I sent him the email, the file, an email, and he read through the script with his mother and father, and they practiced it. Then I went in on a Zoom call with him, and with the phone, he recorded the audio, and it worked perfectly. And we realized, hey, it's possible to do these things, this collaboration remotely. And then I paid him through digital banking, so no need to even be there physically. It's also very interesting how there's a gaming engine that's just released a new app this last week that's free as well. Many things are becoming free, where you can do your facial animation, and in real time it reads your face. When you smile, it sends that data through, and it animates an animated 2D or 3D character. As you speak, the lip movements go. And what that helps us now is that someone in another country can be doing not only voice for you, but they can also be used to animate a character and give it that real character attributes. So it's very exciting, all these things that are happening in a very short time. And then there's virtual production. You know, we can't travel anymore. So how do we cope with this? So I've been experimenting a little bit with filming presenters in a virtual studio using a gaming engine and a virtual camera. And then you can place that person anywhere in the world. Not only that, but you can place them, you can go back in time, or you can go forward in time, take them onto Mars or in the International Space Station. There's this new term, digital twins, where you just take a camera and you photograph a room all around, up and down, put it into the software, photogrammetry, and then it develops this digital twin of your house. There can be another image of your house living in the digital world, and you can put characters into it without even being there. So all these things are coming about. In the past, we had to go to Morocco to film biblical reenactments there, and now we're experimenting with doing that remotely in a studio. So all of these things could have happened in a number of years' time, but this pandemic has sped these decisions up. It's pushed people to move quicker to make these decisions and to change the way they were doing things. Another way is, how do we collect tithes and offerings and donations as well for projects and for Meals on Wheels? So these funds have been going down in most places in the world. Okay, it's true. It's also because of the economic factors. People have lost their jobs, but it's also a factor that is as a result of there not being the ability to give, the technology. So there are numerous apps being developed currently where people can use their phones to do all these kinds of money transfers, and exciting things happening in very short time. Online education as well, schools and universities, possibilities there to teach people online. How about setting up platforms for our musicians? I really have a heart for our musicians. It's a difficult time for them now because they cannot get an income from an audience. They need an audience that pays a fee to listen to them. And this is a very difficult time for them. So why not create a big online concert where you invite different people singing from their homes, and then also have a way of people donating, buying tickets for this show. Maybe it's something we can think of doing. Also, there's a lot of people in need of counseling, and there are counselors out there. People are afraid to go and see counselors. So this can all be done online as well, and can be a very good ministry in the church too. Publishing is in dire straits. Books are having a hard time. So maybe it's time now to move over to ebooks, electronic books. And colporteurs going door to door. I'm not sure if that is going to work. We need to find new ways. Also tracts. Have you noticed these people who hand out advertising tracts at stop streets and traffic lights? Hardly anyone takes them. Maybe it's easier to create a tract that can be sent around on WhatsApp. And if you heard of someone who's lost a loved one, you send them a digital tract about death and giving them comfort in that time. So, but always, as always, don't place all your eggs in one basket. Don't move everything online. We all know that at some point this would be coming. The large social media organizations and video platforms will start to censor more and more of what we say and do. And we've already seen some cases of governments, for political reasons, shutting down the internet. This could happen. So time might come where we have to go back to using DVDs and booklets and flash drives and old-fashioned word of mouth. So while we have this little window of opportunity, this golden window, let's take full advantage of this opportunity for digital evangelism. It's amazing how the cost has come down to make media. 20, 30 years ago, it cost a fortune. The cameras were huge. There was just a huge barrier of resistance, to be able to produce. But now anyone with a smartphone can produce amazing quality. And previously wanted to buy expensive satellite contracts. Now there's the internet. You can start a YouTube channel, cost you nothing. Everybody can become a broadcaster. Also think of the times when we had to fly with helicopters, and that cost a lot to get aerial footage, or filming from a Cessna through a camera and getting airsick because of the movement. Now you send a drone up in the air, doesn't cost the earth, and it takes beautiful aerial footage. Also, that drone can be set up to do photogrammetry, where it flies up and down, and it scans a building and creates a digital copy of that can be used in virtual reality. The world has changed so rapidly. I'd like to show you a picture here of a friend of mine, Fabiana. She has a YouTube channel, and she has 620,000 subscribers. And now, which pastor do you know that has 620,000 members and who speaks to their members every day? What a huge platform she has. And as I was saying to you, you can also start one. It literally takes a few minutes to set up a channel and create content that will touch people and reach them. So social media can also be used very effectively. We need an army of YouTubers. And for years I've been saying this, and that we need to work with young people. They know how to do it. They know the technology. And Ellen White does say that the young people will finish the work. What if this is the time where young people will finish the work through technology? People are now ready to listen. They're seeing what's happening in the world. There's uncertainty everywhere. They've opened their ears. What if this is near the end of time? They're willing to listen. Now's the opportunity. The Adventist Church has always been ahead of the curve in terms of technology. Way back, just after radio, was invented. The church moved into radio, early days of television as well, and print, the 169-year-old magazine. So an amazing couple that I like to read about, Ellen and James White, they were real entrepreneurs. You know, they had to travel on a ship to get to another country and a horse buggy to get to another city. They didn't have internet. They had to send mail by horseback. And look what they achieved during their lifetimes. How many organizations they established, health food companies, hospitals, printing houses, media. Imagine if they were here today, what they would have achieved with everything we have. And so a good friend of mine that I work with, Steve, I got him to put this VR headset on and dress up like James White. And, you know, if James White was around now today, he would probably be involved in VR production with a VR headset. He'd use the latest technology because at that time it was the printing press, and he used that. Jesus was also a disruptor. He's the original disruptor. He challenged the conventional wisdom of his day, calling people to live in a radically new way, disrupting traditional religion through service, forgiveness, and submission. They want bread. He wants them to have faith. They want a sign. He gives a message or a rebuke. Someone answers a question correctly. He then pushes the issue to the next level. But Jesus didn't come to make sure our lives are nice and comfortable, giving us whatever we want. He came to bring change, and change that lasts, because there's a lot that needs to change in us and the world around us. Moses was a disruptor. Nehemiah was a disruptor. Elijah was a disruptor. David was a disruptor. Paul was a disruptor. Jesus was a disruptor, and you can be a disruptor. It is time for you to be a disruptor. It's time to disrupt what isn't working and pursue new, fresh ministry ideas that are connecting people to God. You have a phone. You are creative. You have a platform. You have an audience. Go out and create. And just to end off with, I'd like to share this verse from Matthew 4, verse 22. Immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. If you would like to contact me, if I can help you out to connect you with any of these providers that can help you with technology, please use these details on the screen.
Wow. We here. And Trust is back as well.
Yes, I'm back.
Thank you, man, for that.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot.
Then we can go through the presentations, basically. Trust, you want to comment on Andre's presentation and vice versa, and then I will do the same as well. Things that stood out for you, and we're going to be going through some questions and comments here.
Okay, thanks, Andre. I love the scope of the presentation, especially how you're giving us a contrast with big names such as Netflix and social media giants like Facebook, and how they actually became leading. At the same time, you are saying Netflix doesn't own studios, but they are leading provider of movies now, and we follow them. I see that. And I'm also glad that the church is now taking that direction as what you guys are doing with Adventist Review TV. I like that. I see that we are moving towards the right direction, and it's something that I hope it can split on even to other local entities, even for us as churches, people at local church levels. I'm glad we are doing that as a church with those kind of initiatives. My problem, Andre, is that I don't see much of the church at that level. It's got great content, but as we go lower to local church, content is lousy. What are we going to do about that? I hope it's a question to you now. I don't know. You hear what
Yeah, Trust, that's a good question. And I don't think we should leave it to the church. We now, each member has the capacity to produce. Maybe the church can help on the training side and do training programs and help members. But I think everyone who is interested and must become a broadcaster and put the word out there, send out more soldiers out into the world. So the church often, it's difficult for them. It's a big organization. It's a political sometimes. So decisions are made, for certain reasons, but individuals can go out and produce. And we have that all at our means now. But also, what I wanted to say about your presentation, you always emphasize quality, and that's such a good thing. Because who are we producing this for? It's for God. It must be the best.
Yes.
Right? So when we do everything, we must do it to the best of our ability. And so I appreciate what you said there. And then you also quoted Ellen White as saying that we must find new ways.
Yes.
We must never just be stuck with what we currently use. We must keep wanting to improve, see where the trends are going, where society going, and dive into those new forms of technology as well. So I appreciate that whenever you speak, you mention this thing about quality. By the way, Trust and his studio are producing beautiful music content for ARTV now.
Sure. Yeah,
and
I've seen that. Look, let me latch on what Trust has said, and because it's very easy to dismiss that concern and say, nah, the reason, the church at the higher structures can produce such material is because they have more access to a better budget and have as little, budgetary constraints as people on the ground. But one thing also, Andre, that you've said, and I think, as a matter of fact, as leading communications here at the Cape Conference, I was thinking about this. One of the things that have one of the benefits that have come out of COVID-19 is to realize, who said this? Preach the gospel, when necessary, use words. And that it's not just about standing behind the pulpit. And I'm sure there are many of those who are missing the pulpit right now and the benefit of a live feedback from the audience. And I think there is space for that, and we could never completely do away with it. But the truth is, as you've aptly said earlier on, we need to empower our members now, because there is a new normal. And the truth is, the members are more prepared generally for that new normal than the actual organization is at the corporate level, in terms of exposure and in terms of skill set as well. And so the idea, and I'm gonna put you on the spot now. And what do you think of this idea? Because many members want to invest and work for the church and give their gifts to the church, but we have overlooked them for so long because we thought only the gifts of preaching and singing and maybe teaching are to be utilized in the church. And there has not been a space for photographers. There's not been a space for designers. There has not been a space for videographers. And I think we need to get to a point where, as a matter of fact, I was thinking we might even, let me not touch that thought, but we need to get to a point as the conference, I know that we were thinking about this, where we call in all creatives and all people that are interested in digital evangelism, and we invest on them by calling the best speakers and trainers, both within and outside the church in the industry. And then on top of that, we even could have certification that so and so has attended a course that has been organized by the Seventh-day Adventist Church Global Communications and Technology departments. And then when we invest on the people and their skill set, then it becomes easier for them to give back to the church those skills without having to worry about that question, what is in it for me? And we've seen it work here in the Cape Conference. And when there is an event in Cape Town, as you know, we are a one-man department at the moment in the Cape Conference. And so one cannot be everywhere. So I pick up the phone and then call guys in Cape Town that I know are good photographers and say, hey, there's an event that is happening there. I cannot be there. Would you please go and capture it for me? And more often than not, guys are more than happy to do something for the church. And it's a way of ministering. But I think what we need to do then is to give and enable those gifts once a year to pay for their certifications, to call them to a conference so that they walk away more capacitated to be able to do that job. Your thoughts on that? I know that was long.
Yes, no, absolutely good idea, Sivu. And I must say that where I've seen that working very well is in Zimbabwe. The communication there are so many Adventist journalists in Zimbabwe.
Exactly. I was there.
And you were there. You met some of them.
What do you call it? Zimbabwean Communications Association, ZAMA, something like that. Yeah.
There's an association. And but the church invited them. Firstly, identified them. Then went and introduced themselves to them, and then invited them to help the church with their communications. And I think we can do that there's so many skills in our churches, not only in media. If we had a kind of a database that even when we're doing production, hey, I'm doing a program about mental health. Who do I interview? There's this database. There's this professor and that doctor, and then we know who to connect with. And in the previous days, we'd have to go and film them, travel there, but now on a screen, one can do a program with them. And so I think it's very important, and I think many people will be willing, church members will be willing to share their skills with their church. And you're right, it's not just preaching and teaching. There are many kinds of ministry.
Trust?
I wanted to add on to the other aspect there. There's something that Andrew talked about. He gave an example of when you wanted to do a voiceover of that kid that you're talking about. Remember when you're saying you had to contact him and then you do a voiceover, and then you had to do it on the phone actually apparently, and then he sent the audio to you and you loved it. So when you think about these platforms, we want to imagine that, I need very expensive equipment, and we think of the most expensive ways of going about it, which can become unrealistic if you're starting up. So sometimes some of the solutions we need, you can use as little as that we have, but maintaining quality, using minimum equipment, but with good quality. It's very possible to do that. We have seen that even ourselves here. I've actually done a lot of voiceovers using my phone, and the quality is actually very good. So you get to see that sometimes, even for our members, I say this for our listeners, some of them can be saying, I don't really have the equipment that Cape Conference has. I don't have the big cameras that SID has, I don't have that. So am I going to sit down and just watch? No, there's a lot that we could do using in the minimum means that we have around us, but maintaining a certain standard of quality. That's what.
I love what Apple has been doing recently. I think it's Apple Global, but certainly Apple South Africa, where they would be coordinating trainings online and on how to use your iPhone for for photography. Because the truth is that often we use less than 10% of our of our gadgets abilities. And so much can be accomplished. And if we train the members how to use this iPhone for mission and possibilities that are there as well.
Because also, oh, sorry. Yeah, while you're still there, I want to come on that point about how you're using your phone.
Sure.
Your iPhone can record clear audio, almost as good as it's very possible. Also, even photography. Now it can shoot videos in 4K using the iPhone, and which sometimes some cameras can't even do that. So you get to see that it's not really with the minimum equipment gadgets that we have, like just your phone. You can get very good quality videos, of course, with proper lighting and all that. But with the minimum expenses, should I say, you can have quality stuff. Yeah.
Sure.
No,
I was also thinking, like our churches were underutilized. There's a building standing there, and 7 days of the week we use it for a few hours on one day. The rest of the week it stands empty. Very similar to studios. How many studios do we have in the church? We all know that when you run a studio, it's not busy for 10 hours a day, every day, 5 days, 6 days a week.
No.
So why not do what YouTube does? They invest money all around the world. They have little places where people can come to and produce content because they want more content. The more content that comes to YouTube, the more advertising dollars come into their pockets. So they're trying to empower people, teach them how to do good videos that people watch, provide them with the facilities. This gaming engine, Unreal, gives mega grants. They give money to people who they think can utilize their platform and make it grow. So why not, as a church, do we not strategically in a country plan a couple of these little studios? And it doesn't have to be larger than a double garage, right? Size room.
Yes.
And set it up with the minimal good quality equipment, and then train members so that they can then come in, schedule times to run with programs that they can produce there, and do evangelism that way. Just a thought.
Sure. And by the way, viewers, please, if you've got any other ideas, show them and share them with us, and we will attend to them, and we'll beam them. We will beam them now on the screen, and then attend to them. Somebody says, maybe the local church needs to look at the local needs and develop content that aligns with that. That's so true.
Can I answer to that?
Sure.
I find it very interesting when I used to fly every month somewhere. Then I can't sit so long in a seat, so I'd get up and walk around. And I took particular interest in looking at what people were watching on their TV and then looking at the person. Do you know that people want their own content? If I travel to India, the people from India would be watching Bollywood, not Hollywood. They watch Bollywood. When I travel to any region in Africa, it would be Nigerian movies or some South African movies. Even if the latest blockbuster is out from Hollywood, people are not watching that. They're watching their content that speaks to them. So you're right. We need to produce and speak to the local region in the right way.
And speaking about that, you shared your friend's Fabiana story as an example of how she has grown her subscriptions and followership on YouTube. But one thing I like about that account of Fabiana is that she's speaking her language. Of course, it's a dominant global language, and she's speaking Spanish. If I remember, most of that is Portuguese, right? Portuguese, yes. And of course, the temptation look at us now. For understandable reasons, we are speaking English, and but that is practical. That is understandable. But what gets more disturbing is the conspicuous absence of good quality content that is in local languages. And that is not just in South Africa, but across the continent as well. And a local language in Shona, I mean, good quality content that is done in Shona, in Xhosa, in Pedi. And Afrikaans is trying to catch up, but it is also not theirs yet. And I think we also need to be mindful of that as we are trying to meet local needs. The language issue.
Absolutely. And it doesn't just mean taking other content and subtitling it. That doesn't do it. You need to tell the story in the original language and trust.
Yeah, no, that's a good point that you've raised there. No other additions there. I support that.
Yeah. Somebody says we need to look and cater for the rural areas and do likewise, because often things are done from metropolitan regions. And the truth is, Africa is more rural than it is urban. And I'm just going.
Yeah, with that point, that's a valid point, but it's a problem. As looking at how media is and where we are, it's still a problem. Because why? Internet is still a bit sometimes not available to very rural remote places. I'll speak for the context of Southern Africa. There's still a lot of very remote places where there's no internet there, and to reach those places sometimes can be hard. So it may now require even other means, not just using the internet. So content creators may now need to use things like radio, because some places they still use radio to actually. So you need to now figure out what other means can you do for your audience. The other way is to, if you're going to create WhatsApp sermons, let's say for example a sermon on WhatsApp, maybe make them as audio sermon so that they can easily download them and use them for WhatsApp. So maybe that's another way of trying to cater for the very rural audiences.
Sure. And of course, the prohibitively expensive cost of data are not helping here, especially now. And this is the case. This seems to be the case across Africa, but it is indeed the case here in South Africa.
But I think that will be changing, pretty soon. In a year's time, we may be looking at a whole different scenario. But that's what makes me excited about animation, which is becoming easier to do now and more automated, is that you can have the same story, but then you can put different languages in, and then the software will animate the mouths. It's easy to put a lot of different languages onto those programs. So you can cater for a whole region with multiple languages. And
I like that.
But then the characters have to be representative.
Sure. Speaking about that, let me jump on that because there's been quite a whole hula bahu in Southern Africa and Adventist circles. Let me just raise it. And I did, by the way, raise this with the communications department of the GC. How our design work still sadly reflects the historical narrative, where you have angelic or heavenly beings like angels, Christ, and everybody white and Bible characters as well, even in our design and everything. And then you've got Jesus Christ. For me, it has never made sense. For example, so you would have a black preacher doing an evangelistic crusade, speaking to a black African audience, and then as he is doing his concluding remarks, and then there is a picture of a white Jesus with his eyes wide open, and I'm like, there is a juncture here. We've got to work on something here.
No, you're right, Sivu. And I've been very involved with filming biblical productions.
Yes, I remember that.
And we do it in Morocco for a reason. Yeah. So I really don't like to see the programs, and it might be for language sake as well, but to see white, blue-eyed characters, because we know that's not how it is in the Middle East. So that's why we go to Morocco, and we did a production of Daniel. And I think this is such a real depiction of Daniel.
Sure.
Different from what we see in the Bible stories that we were taught as kids, you know. But you're right. Why is that still happening? We can understand maybe in the 60s and 70s, but times have changed, and we need to update that kind of thinking. You're exactly right.
Trust?
Yes, I think to add on to that, the other aspect is I think we need to stop crying much about why do we still have those kind of glitches where you've got, let's say, a white Christ with blue eyes. The problem is let's start creating our own content. I like what Andre is doing. He showed us his last time when we were in Jordan again, and I saw part of that. That's brilliant. Why? Let's start creating our own content. That's why we are having these platforms. So that even in movies now, let's start creating our own movies which have got our own context. Instead of trying to worry about, now Hollywood has made a movie and it's not aligning to our values as Africans. No, produce your own stuff with your own content, which can identify to yourselves. You need to identify with your content. So, and you can expect you can't expect Hollywood to do it for you. You have to do it on your own.
So exactly.
It identifies to your story.
And we have the stories on this continent. Wow.
We do have
awesome stories that need to be told. Inspiring stories.
That's true. Now, Trust, somebody was saying, such a necessary presentation. Thank you for the points, Trust. And this is during your presentation. Will you please repeat the questions one should ask themselves when branding?
When branding?
Yes. Remember when those questions you shared?
All right. I said here, question number 1, what's the message of your ministry? What's the message of your ministry? And how do you want to relate with your audience? And how do you want your audience to relate to you? That's the third question. Fourth question, what's unique about your ministry? Why should online users subscribe to your ministry? Those are the kind of questions that you need to ask yourself if you're going to start engaging into online audience.
And as a response to your parting shots, Andre, a viewer has just said, "Lord, help me to be a disruptor."
Amen.
And somebody has just said, "Insightful and very informative presentations." I'm glad you guys found them to be that. And I remember you excellent. Holiness can't replace quality. That seems to have yes. But you want to say something, Andre?
Sivu, I noticed a good comment made by Ruth Lehman. She says there needs to be collaboration and less competition. That is so true. Why are we competing? We all have the same goal, and so let's not keep. And that's what I like now about this online community. Hey, I've discovered a shortcut to doing something. Let me share that with everyone. Put it on YouTube. If you want to fix something, you can fix anything. It's on YouTube. That guy didn't say, I'm going to keep this to myself and pay for it, So we should be doing that with the gospel and creating far more collaboration. And that's what I like about organizations like GAIN, where technologists, IT people, producers, authors, they all come together and they say, hey, you're doing the similar thing to us. Let's work together. Let's build bridges. And that's the only way we're going to achieve success.
I think Ntombomse says something to that effect. I wish it could be coordinated to a point that it does not bring a mind of competition rather than the vehicle of mission and to advance the work. Praying for our church to see a bigger picture, not stuck on tradition and politics that are not having anything to do with our salvation. And then, of course, good point there on downloading sermons for sharing on WhatsApp instead of just YouTube. And I see Pat Komafani, Weman. Okay. Any parting shots, guys?
Yeah, Andre can go ahead.
Well, let's go out there and disrupt and realize that we have what we need to do it usually, and that it's never become easier and cheaper than to use the internet now. And as I said, I think our window is here. Let's use it while we still have it. And yeah, the Holy Spirit will guide and lead and bless us that we can achieve this. But there are many ears out there, many eyes waiting to hear and see. And this is the time. The opportunities have come about due to, the situation we find ourselves in now.
Okay.
Thanks, Andre.
I'll only say two things. Think creative and think quality. Just that.
Trust, to mention quality. Thank you, Trust. Creativity and quality. One of the things that I take and I was trying to accomplish that by inviting you guys. And two people have mentioned it already. And that's one word, collaboration. Collaborate. The arrogance of thinking that you can do everything yourself in-house is obsolete. It's not, I mean, you can't sustain it. And let me also thank Richard Botta. He's been thank you, Richard, but thanks for the program, and may the Lord bless you. And you see, Trust and Andre have committed themselves. Will also be in communication with the other institutions, the SAU and the SID, and see how we as the conference can make this possible, where we have all the creatives across our wide and large continent, from photographers, from designers, and see how we can put all this together, and producers of content and creative writers. And the truth is, the church cannot afford right now to be employing those people. And the truth is, those people are ready and willing to work for the church. They just need a platform, and we have heard that, and we're going to be working on that. And thank you so much for joining this afternoon. And let me promise you that at 5 o'clock we are pushing to be having that DSTV online message by Pastor Mnobisa that had some glitches this morning on YouTube and Facebook. So we'll definitely see you at 5 o'clock with that message. May God bless you. Andre, Trust, thank you guys. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Sivu.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.